Hey everyone, welcome back to Trek for Wealth, the podcast where we talk about money the way real people actually talk about money. I'm Avery.
And I'm Grant. And Avery, before we start today, I want to say something directly to anyone listening right now who's living paycheck to paycheck.
Go ahead.
This is not your fault.
Say more about that.
Because the conversation around paycheck to paycheck living almost always turns into personal responsibility. You're spending too much. You need to budget better. Cut your lattes. And look, personal habits do matter. We're going to talk about that today. But 51% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck right now. 51%. That is not a personal failure epidemic. That is a structural economic reality.
And it connects to almost everything we've covered in this podcast. The E-shaped economy from episode 5, the mortgage crisis from episode 3, the falling wages, the rising prices, the interest rates that won't drop.
It all flows downhill, and it flows right into people's checking accounts, or more accurately, right back out of them.
Today, we're going to explain why this is happening, who it's actually hitting, and most importantly, what you can do right now to start breaking the cycle, even if it feels impossible.
Especially if it feels impossible.
Let's get into it. Okay, Grant, let's start with the numbers, because I think people need to understand the actual scale of what we're talking about.
So, according to the most recent Ramsey Solutions data on the state of personal finance in America, 51% of U.S. adults are living paycheck to paycheck. 35% say they feel trapped in a cycle of debt. And 52%, more than half of all Americans, worry about their finances every single day.
Every single day.
And here's a number that I find most alarming of all. Bankrate's 2026 Emergency Savings Report found that only 30% of Americans could pay a $1,000 emergency expense. Only 30%.
Which means 70% of Americans are one car repair away from going into debt.
One unexpected ER visit, one broken furnace, one missed paycheck. And for 34% of Americans, they already have more credit card debt than emergency savings. They're paying 22% interest on debt while having nothing set aside for when life happens.
And prices aren't helping. Prices overall are 26% higher today than they were in December 2019. 26%. And wages for lower and middle income households have not kept up.
Bank of America's data puts it starkly. In 2025, lower-income household wages grew just 1% year over year, while the cost of living grew 3%. Put another way, if your bills went up $300 but your paycheck only went up $100, you are mathematically falling behind every single month. And there's nothing a budget app can fix that math.
So this is not just people making bad decisions.
This is millions of people making reasonable decisions inside a system where the math no longer works for them. And that context matters enormously for how we talk about solution.
Okay, so let's talk about who this is hitting, because the data has some surprises.
The biggest surprise is that it's not just low-income households. PNC Bank found that 77% of American workers say they're living paycheck to paycheck. 77%. That's not just people earning minimum wage. That includes people earning $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year.
So what's happening to middle income earners that's pulling them into this?
2 words: lifestyle inflation. As people earn more, they tend to spend more. The car gets nicer, the apartment gets bigger, the vacations get fancier, and somehow the bank account never seems to grow. It's the financial hamster wheel, running faster but not getting anywhere.
And there's a specific generation getting hit especially hard by this.
Millennials. The data is genuinely heartbreaking. Wages for low-income millennials have grown just 1% compared to 6% for high-income millennials. And 42% of millennials have more credit card debt than emergency savings. They entered the workforce during or after the 2008 financial crisis. They faced student loan debt, they tried to buy homes when prices were at all-time highs, and now they're navigating the highest inflation in 40 years.
There's a real person in the CNN data that stuck with me. Austin, 34 years old, works full-time, supporting his partner through vet school. He said, "We want to own a house and start a family, but I don't know how we will ever get our feet under ourselves."
And that feeling of working hard and still not getting ahead is the defining financial experience of a generation. It is real, it is not weakness, and it deserves honest solutions, not just cut your streaming services.
Which brings us to the actual strategies, because there are things you can do, even inside a broken system, even when the math feels impossible.
So let's talk about the cycle itself first, because understanding why you can't break out is the first step to actually breaking out.
The hamster wheel.
Here's how it works. You get paid, bills hit immediately, rent, car payment, utilities, minimum credit card payments, then groceries, then gas, and by day 10 of a 30-day month, the paycheck is essentially gone. Something unexpected happens, it always does, and the only option is the credit card.
And the credit card charges 22% interest, so next month the minimum payment is higher, which means less money for everything else, which means more reliance on the credit card.
And around it goes, getting faster with each rotation. This is why 59% of Americans say they can't cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. Not because they're irresponsible, because the cycle has been spinning long enough that there's no gap left.
So, how do you create a gap?
You have to attack the cycle from two directions simultaneously. You slow the outflow and you create even a tiny inflow of savings. And here's the critical insight from the research. You don't need a lot of money to start, you need a buffer, because a buffer changes everything.
The first $1,000 is the game changer.
The first $1,000 changes your entire relationship with money. Because when the car repair hits, you don't reach for the credit card, you reach for your buffer. And you don't add to the credit card spiral. That first $1,000 is worth more than almost any investment you could make because it's paying 22% interest by not being credit card debt.
Dave Ramsey calls it baby step one, the $1,000 starter emergency fund. And as frustrating as some of his other advice can be, on this point, he's absolutely right.
Most people who start can get there within 30 days, not by making dramatic life changes, by making a few intentional redirects.
Okay, let's get very practical. The actual steps, in order.
Step 1. Track for 30 days. Not budget, just track. Write down or use an app to record every single dollar you spend for 1 month. No judgment, no changes yet, just observation. Because most people genuinely don't know where their money goes. Studies show we underestimate our discretionary spending by 30 to 40%.
Step 2, find your quick wins. After 30 days of tracking, look for the obvious leaks, not your coffee. The things you forgot you were even paying for, unused gym memberships, streaming services you haven't opened in months, subscription boxes. The average American has 3 to 4 recurring subscriptions they don't actively use. Canceling those can free up $40 to $60 a month immediately.
Step 3. Build the starter emergency fund first. Before you attack that aggressively, before you invest, get $1,000 into a high-yield savings account, not a regular savings account. High-yield accounts are currently paying 4 to 5% APY. Your money earns something while it sits there, and most importantly, it is your firewall against the credit card spiral.
Step 4, then attack debt. And here you have 2 proven strategies. The avalanche method, pay off the highest interest rate first. Mathematically, the most efficient. The snowball method, pay off the smallest balance first, regardless of rate. Psychologically, the most motivating. Research actually shows the snowball wins for most people because the quick wins keep you in the game.
Step 5. Increase the inflow. And this one isn't comfortable but necessary. If you've cut everything you can cut and the math still doesn't work, the answer is more income. Not forever, just enough to build the buffer and break the cycle. 39% of working Americans have a side hustle. Among millennials, it's 50%. The gig economy, for all its flaws, is a genuine escape valve from the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle for millions of people.
And step 6, automate everything. Treat your savings like a bill. The moment your paycheck hits, an automatic transfer moves $20, $30, $50 to your high-yield savings account. You never see it, you never miss it. And over 12 months, it adds up to something real.
The research is clear on this. People who automate savings save 3 times more than people who save whatever's left over. Because whatever's left over is always zero.
Grant, before we close, I want to address something directly because I know some of our listeners are going to hear these steps and think, that's great, but my situation is beyond steps. I'm in crisis.
And that's a real and valid response, because sometimes the cycle has been spinning so long, the standard advice doesn't reach the ground.
If that's you, three things. First, call your creditors before you miss payments, not after. Most creditors have hardship programs, reduced interest rates, deferred payments, restructured terms that they don't advertise, but they'll offer them if you call and explain your situation honestly. It saves your credit score and buys you breathing room.
Second, look into nonprofit credit counseling, not debt settlement companies. Those can be predatory and damage your credit. Nonprofit credit counselors from the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, NFCC, are free or low cost and can help you negotiate directly with creditors.
And third, if the debt load is truly overwhelming, know that bankruptcy exists for a reason. It's a legal tool designed for exactly these situations. Chapter 7 bankruptcy can discharge most unsecured debt and give you a genuine fresh start. It's not failure. It's a legal mechanism that society created because sometimes the math truly can't be fixed by budgeting alone.
The most important thing, regardless of where you are in this cycle, is to take one step today. Not the whole plan, one step. Track your spending this week. Move $20 to a savings account right now. Call one creditor. The cycle feels permanent. It isn't, but it only breaks when you interrupt it even slightly, and that interruption has to start somewhere.
It starts with one step. Grant, close us out.
In 1930, at the height of the Great Depression, Franklin Roosevelt said that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And while today's paycheck-to-paycheck crisis is not the Great Depression, the same psychological principle applies. The cycle feeds on the feeling that nothing can change. Break that feeling with one action, however small, and you've already started winning.
51% of Americans are in this cycle right now, which means if you're listening and you're one of them, you are not alone. You are not a failure, and you are not stuck forever.
One step today.
That's Trek for Wealth. If this episode spoke to someone you know, share it, not as advice, just as company. Sometimes knowing someone else understands makes the first step a little easier to take.
All our sources are in the show notes. The NFCC link is there too for anyone who needs it.
We'll see you next week. Keep tracking.
Take care, everyone.